well-being of kids. Those challenges are there, but they're there every year. And what will we do? We will persevere. It's what you've always done, it's what you've done for the past 18 months, and it's what you'll continue to do.
Interrupted, they don't have Zoom if you want to.
Oh, we need to take a quick time out. Technical difficulties. I wish I could sing. I can't. Aaron, I want to ask you to sing. We do have a few musicians in the room. I know Aaron can sing. Do we have a bass player? Who's a bass player? Josh has a good voice.
You need me to sing? How about Kung Fu Fighting?
Do you want to sing?
Sure.
I was joking, but Josh is going to sing.
What do you want me to sing? Everybody was Kung Fu fighting. But surely not everybody was Kung Fu fighting. I think that that's a very high standard. I know it was the 70s, but I don't think that everybody was actually Kung Fu fighting. I could tell you a story if you like. All right, so here's a story. So when I was married, I did all the cooking. My wife was a terrible cook, and she has come to accept this, so it's okay. But when I was single, it was very different to cook for one instead of five. And so I would eat a lot of cornbread because I get a lot of mileage out of it. You can eat it for breakfast, you can eat it for lunch, with dinner, you can eat it for dessert, making a strawberry shortcake. And one night, I ate a piece of cornbread, or I cooked cornbread, had a piece with dinner, went to have a piece afterwards, I popped it in my mouth and went right to the top of my windpipe. Just sealed it shut. And I remember thinking, I did 2 tours in Iraq, and I'm gonna die in my kitchen from freaking cornbread. And so I went to grab a chair and give myself the Heimlich maneuver on the back of the chair, because in theory you can do that. And just then my brother walked in. Now my brother was almost never home. He was my roommate. But he just happened to be in the area. He came in and he said, "Are you okay?" And do you know the universal sign for choking? You don't really do this when you're choking to death. You actually go, "Oh." So I did that, and he came up behind me to give me the Heimlich maneuver. Now, I'm like 40 pounds heavier, 3 inches taller than my brother. He comes up behind me, takes his fist, puts it in the middle of my chest. This is not where you do the Heimlich maneuver, but I can't tell him that because I'm choking to death. So he lifts me up off the ground with panic moron strength and starts squeezing, and things are cracking and popping in my chest. It hurt for weeks. And I started shaking my head, and he put me down, and he said, and this is an exact quote, he said, "I don't really know what I'm doing." I put his hand in the right spot. He does it again. The cornbread came up. The Heimlich maneuver truly does work. Thank you, Dr. Heimlich. But those of you who have studied anatomy and physiology will know that your esophagus is connected to your nose and all that stuff. And so, you know how when you laugh when you're drinking milk, it can come out your nose? Friends, cornbread can also come out your nose. And if you were given the choice between milk and cornbread, go for the milk. Thank you very much. Please tip your waiter.
That's the 4th time I've heard that story, and it gets better every time. All right, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Tech Department, for getting that up and running. Why are we successful? We're successful, you're successful, because you make connections with kids. We saw that so many times last year. Okay? You're successful because of those relationships that you established and you built. You understand the importance of doing the little things. We saw that a million times a day with those emails, meeting kids, meeting parents, calling parents, Zooms, all the little things you did for kids. It's evident that you care and you love kids. It's evident that you care and you love what you do. And it's evident that you're experts in what you do. That's why we are successful. Where are we going? We've talked a little bit about the blueprint. I want to just spend 30 seconds talking about where are we going this year, what are we focusing in on. Okay, we want to make sure that we continue to promote and require academic excellence for our kiddos here in school. We want to continue to build and nurture those community partnerships. We want to promote the well-being of all. We want to demonstrate local and global citizenship, and we want to build and nurture a growth mindset. Again, so important for our kids. This is our blueprint for the next 3-4 years. This is our strategic plan. You'll be working on it at the building level for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll be rolling it out to the community in mid to end of October. Real quickly, I want to call Tara up to talk a little bit about the mandated training. We did it slightly different this year in order to maximize some time. Tara?
Hi, everyone. I hope this was a welcome change for you, that you don't have to listen to me as you're thinking about wanting to set up your classrooms and get ready for students. I did email a link to everyone with all of the mandated training materials so that you can go through it at your own pace. We just ask that you complete it by October 1st. There's a Google form that you have to fill out just for our compliance monitoring to make sure that it's been completed. I know some people had trouble accessing some of the links. John has updated the website, so if you go to staff links, mandatory training, everything's uploaded there as a PDF as well. So that's really it for mandatory training. Just let me know if you have any questions or can't access anything moving forward. Thanks.
I'm really pleased today to have Aaron Polanski here to speak with us. Aaron has served in the capacity of coach, teacher, or administrator at all levels of education from pre-K through college. He currently serves as a superintendent in Massachusetts and continues his learning at the Harvard Business School, where he recently completed his certificate in school management and leadership. Aaron worked in the private sector as an executive sales manager and designer for a multi-million-dollar landscape construction company, and as the director of Massachusetts USA Wrestling, an affiliate for the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado, for 10 years. He was the director of athletics for the 2003 Dalton Award-winning Hopkinton Department of Athletics, a 2-time Wrestling Coach of the Year, a 2011 Wrestling USA Magazine Massachusetts Man of the Year, a 2013 Verco NASSP Massachusetts Assistant Principal of the Year, and was presented the Frederick Douglass Award in 2015 for his contributions to at-risk youth, and serves as a keynote speaker for events nationwide. Aaron released his first book, Dolphin in Trees, a children's book with implications for all of us, in the summer of 2018. Dolphins in Trees has been used to guide leadership teams, school systems, cultural expectations, and family values throughout the country and internationally. His second book, Beyond Us, has received national attention and was written about and illustrated by one of his graphic design and communication students who has since graduated. Aaron's third book, Finding Purpose, was published in June of 2021 as a tool to help readers move beyond doubt to a place of inspired action. I am very honored and pleased to welcome Aaron Polanski to Douglas.
Thank you, Paul. Can you see me behind the podium? Paul forgot to mention, how many people here have seen The Wizard of Oz? I was one of the munchkins. I think we're somewhat limited by the mic, if that's correct. So if I could, I don't want to stand behind the podium. I feel like sometimes, especially with my height, I get lost there. Can you let's see.
If these people can hear you without the PA mic, they can hear you next door with that mic.
They can. Okay. Can everyone here hear me? All right, let's try that. And then I'll turn this so it's, and then they can maybe hear me over there. We'll just make it, we're innovating, we're in COVID, so let's just give it a whirl. Test, test. Maybe not. So before we get started, just a quick question for everyone. How many people sometime today got a handwritten note from somebody they love? Not a text, not an email, just a handwritten note from somebody they love. Show of hands. Put them up really high. Wow. If you look around, that's actually a very high percentage of handwritten notes. And there's some real power in the written word. And before we get started, I just want you to look down. You have a postcard that says thank you. And on the other side of that postcard, it looks like this. It says, these are just a few of the reasons you are appreciated. Words change worlds. And I wish that at the beginning of my teaching career, someone had expressed to me the importance of the written word. How many people have received something in writing from a supervisor and held on to it and put it somewhere special in their office or in their desk? How about a student? How many have received something from a student? And isn't that the most powerful form of reinforcement, when a student tells you what an impact you've made on their life? And so I encourage you to give that some thought. There are extra postcards if you'd like them. But never give up the opportunity to tell somebody how much you love them, what an impact they've made in your life, why they're amazing, or about their potential. Because words change worlds. They start wars and they end wars. Today, I want to open by having you do a turn and talk. And what I hope you'll do, we'll give each of you 30 seconds. You'll have a partner. All I'd like you to do is turn to your partner, number yourselves 1 and 2. The first person is going to give the other person, person number 2, their elevator speech about the philosophy that drives their culture. Right? It could be your personal life, your culture in your personal life. It could be your classroom culture. But do you have a philosophy that drives your decisions, that drives your culture in your life? Something that you revert back to and refer to when you have to make a decision. You might not. But you might have some agreements that you think back to when you make decisions. So, if there's a philosophy that drives your decisions, and for the sake of today, we'll focus just on classroom and learning, turn to someone and talk about the philosophy that drives your decisions. So find a partner, and then I'll give you 30 seconds each, and you can talk about that philosophy. I have no philosophy. All right. So person number 1, I'll say begin, and you'll just take 30 seconds to share a philosophy that drives your decision making. 30 seconds, person number 1, begin. Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, time. Wonderful. Wow, that was impressive. Usually I say if you can hear me clap once, I go back to my elementary school days, but no need. Now person number 2, you're going to have the same opportunity to give your elevator speech about a philosophy that drives your decisions. So person number 2, it's your turn, 30 seconds, ready, begin. Five seconds. 2, 1, time. All right. Now I know we've got folks from all different roles here. I met Rhonda, who's a twin, earlier today. I realize it's her first year in the district. My wife's name is Rhonda. I also have twins. I'm a father of 6. I've got 5 daughters and 1 son. So I think often about the philosophies that drive my decisions. And then in the same breath, I met, I believe it was Carol, who just came up and received an award, and Charlene, who work in the cafeteria. 20 plus years in the cafeteria. Give her another round of applause. That's amazing. So I'm wondering, as we sit here together and some folks are in the cafeteria, would anyone be willing to come up from the high school, and is this a primary, high school and primary? Just to come up to this mic and share something that, a philosophy that you use to make decisions within your own culture? There's no right or wrong. Anyone? And just tell us your name, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. And what school you're coming from?
By speaking here.
That's great.
I'm from the primary school, and my name is Tracy Purvis, and I was just telling Kim that I think when I taught for many years, and then I had my first child, and I think when I had my child, my philosophy kind of changed. It really opened my eyes, and then I saw everything that I did in my classroom as a parent as well as a teacher, and I think that really opened my eyes and made me think, wow, these are somebody's children and they want what's best. And I knew that before, but once I had my own kids, it really made me think, and that's how I still think today, even though my kids are older.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Tracy, you said primary, right?
Yep.
So, first of all, you know, it's hard to be the first person to step forward and answer a question, right? Sure. Especially when you're in front of a crowd. I'm going to try and model things today, and I'm also going to try and help us reflect about what it's like to be a student. So first of all, thank you for taking a risk. This doesn't work unless people come to the mic and have a conversation, and I really appreciate that, and this is for your classroom.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Who else? Who else wants to just share real quickly a philosophy that drives their decision making, if they don't mind? And you could stand up or you can come to the mic, whatever's most comfortable for you. And if you're not comfortable, that's okay too. I guess my question for you is, how many people, when they talked about the philosophy that drives their culture, how many people talked about the MCAS? Raise your hands. How many people talked about standardized tests? And I think when we sit in an interview, and for some of us it may have been 20 years ago, and for some of us it may have been weeks ago. I'm going to tell you right now that Phil was my bus driver at East School in Natick when I was growing up. Phil.
I also went to East School.
Did you really?
Your father, David Bland?
My dad is David, yes. Yeah. So I went to East School in Natick. Phil was my bus driver. And Phil was a huge difference maker in my life. Every day I got on the bus, Phil had long hair. I think the bus driver from The Simpsons is who they modeled Phil after, right? If you remember the bus driver from The Simpsons. And Phil knew our name, he smiled, and he made us feel loved. And Rhonda, I'm going to tell you right now that after 34 years of service, Dolly Furtado, our custodian, gave the keynote address at the graduation last year because of the impact that she made on our students. And when students come into the building and they feel your energy, because I felt your energy when you were having a conversation over here this morning, they will be blessed. And I hope that you bring that same energy that you had in your conversation to the work that you do in the Douglas schools, because it was absolutely beautiful. It was enough to capture my attention and ask you who you were. Good luck to you in your role. As we think about what we truly make decisions about, I want to share a little bit of a song with you. Paul said I sing. Oh, I'm going to have to learn these remotes. If standardized test scores are your school's top priority, your mission is more about adults than it is students. I put a little something together for you. And I'll just have to wait for my internet signal here. Give me 1 second. This may be familiar to some. Do you want to fill in circles? Talk about the Common Core. It doesn't matter anyway. It's just a score. We used to be best buddies, but now we're not. Somebody tell me why. Do you want to fill in circles? Do you want to fill in circles? Okay, bye. Your kids are blessed to have you back right in front of them. They're not here to fill in circles. They're here to learn something that's going to bring them to great places in later years and even beyond the graduation stage. And so today, we need to think about what drives them. Who knows who created that mouse? Shout it out. Right? And who knows what Walt Disney said on the day that Disney World opened? Anyone know? Oh, we got a hand up over here.
I have heard we need more trash cans.
We need more trash cans. That's,
A new one.
what is your name?
Caroline.
Caroline. Wow, you're close. Can you hear me, folks? Caroline, do you mind coming up?
Not at all.
What school are you at?
High school.
What do you teach?
History.
Give her a round of applause. So you're pretty close. Caroline, history, high school said, Walt Disney said on the day that Disney World opened, we need more trash cans. First of all, I want to thank you for taking a risk. So I've got some socks, there's a story. We'll tell that story in just a little bit. Those are for you. You're welcome, Caroline. Stay there for just 1 minute. The answer to what Walt Disney said on the day that Disney World opened is not we need more trash cans. Walt Disney didn't say anything. He had died. Right? However, Roy Disney was asked, isn't it a shame that Walt never got to see Disney World? And it's so perfect that you're a history teacher, right?
Yes.
And Roy replied, he did get to see it. That's why we get to see it. And everything that happens in our lives happens first between our ears and then between our hours. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And in order for those things to happen, it is imperative that we encourage our students to dream. We need to move away from an environment of compliance and move in to an environment of creativity, innovation, and inquiry. And the reality of the most successful educational institutions is one based on relationships. David Marquette has a book out. It's called Turn the Ship Around. Paul's brother, actually, gave us the name of that book when we were preparing for a leadership conference. There is a 10-minute video. If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly encourage you to look at it. It's online. And again, David Marquette, Turn the Ship Around. We showed it to our entire staff, and we said to them, from now on, we want you to drive the submarine. We want you to come to us with your good decisions so that we can support you. And when we did that, we gave them a level of empowerment. And when you do that, you create comfort, because you cannot do Bloom until we take care of Maslow's. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs allows us to be our authentic self. Some people ask, when I talk to middle school groups, I tell them that they need to wear their geek socks. When I talk to adults, I tell them to make sure they operate with authenticity. And I had an English teacher once look over my presentation and she said, "You misspelled authenticity." I said, "No, this is a made-up word." I talk about innovation and creativity. This is a made-up word. Authenticity is what you feel when you meet someone who's real. Right? It's that feeling you get when the person you're standing across from is truly authentic and they inspire something within you. It's an electricity. It's a genuineness. The best teachers bring it to the table. The best administrators help people to feel loved, trusted, empowered, and I call it authenticity. With our younger kids, I tell them they need to wear their geek socks, and these are geek socks. And the story behind the geek socks is, I was with my 3 oldest daughters at the Silver City Galleria Mall, no longer exists. We're getting out of the car, and I was wearing shorts, socks, sandals, and a t-shirt, and my oldest daughter said, "Dad, no way." And I said, "What?" She said, "You can't go in like that." And I said, "I have an idea. You guys walk 15 feet in front of me, don't call me Dad, no one will know, and as long as I can see you and you're safe, we'll just make our way through the mall." We started at Bertucci's, we walked all the way to the other end of the mall to Dairy Queen, where I was going to buy them ice cream. And on the way there, 3 people said to me, I had really colorful socks on, "I love your socks." And by the time we got to Dairy Queen, my 3 daughters wanted a pair of the socks. They had heard, they were within earshot, they had heard people compliment me on my colorful socks. And it's amazing how quickly something becomes cool, right? When we think about how things become cool, it's because someone did it, someone else decided that it was cool, and then all of a sudden it's cool. So the socks went from being not so cool to cool. So I said to my daughters, when they said to me, "Can we get a pair of those socks?" I said, "I'm going to make special socks for you." And the special socks have a picture of someone wearing sandals, socks, and shorts. And on the back, they say, "Be kind." That's the story behind wearing your geek socks, being your authentic self. Because when we're our authentic self, we can operate at the highest levels. And so I want to get back to the initial question which was, do you have a philosophy that drives your decision making? And this is my philosophy. Is it kind? Is it honest? Will it improve the situation? And if you can answer yes to all 3 questions, you can proceed. And that might sound cheesy, but it works with everything. When I was an assistant principal, if a student made a mistake and they came in my office, I could always remain calm. And I could always have a conversation with them and say, "Just a quick question." The 3 questions that we always ask, which one of those questions do you feel you violated? Because you're a really smart person, and we all make mistakes. But if we can identify which of those 3 things you may have violated, then we can proceed accordingly and we can make the appropriate correction. And I always made sure to say, because you're a really smart person. Because we're all human. I've negotiated a number of different contracts with a number of different unions. And when we have our contract negotiations in our first year, I'll never forget, I said to our school committee, "We're not going to come in and play a game." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I don't want to come in at a super low number and then change our low number to a high number." And they said, "Well, you know that the union will come in at a really high number and it's just going to end up being a game." And I said, "I don't want to send that message to anyone. I want the message to be one of value. And I will meet with the stewards ahead of time and we'll have a conversation, and we just won't play a game." And in the first year, I think it took time to build trust. And in the 4th year, it became a totally different ballgame because we knew who one another were. But the reality is that when we build trust with students, with each other, and we do the right things for the right reasons, the reward is unbelievable. When you follow these 3 tenets, you can be yourself. Is it kind? Is it honest? Will it improve the situation? And I'll never forget, I had a young man, he was on the spectrum. He had an issue in my 3rd year as assistant principal. I called him to my office, and he said, "Mr. Polanski," and he's given me permission to share this, "Mr. Polanski, before you talk to me, I just need you to know, I know it wasn't kind, but it was honest and it improved my situation." And I said to him, "Well then, Ben, what do we do if it wasn't kind?" He said, "Well then, I'm probably going to have to apologize and explain to that person why I was upset with them." And for a student who had a very difficult time expressing himself, the rubric worked unbelievably. It works at the lower levels, it's worked with all of my children, and it works with us as adults. When we can be our authentic self, we can build connection. If you've ever been somewhere and you feel like you just don't fit, there's a high likelihood that you weren't your authentic self in that moment. And when you've ever walked into a room and you felt immediately welcomed, there's a better opportunity for us to build connections. And when we build connection for our students, test scores go up, disciplinary referrals go down, tardies go down, and students enjoy coming to school. In kindergarten, again at the East School in Natick, I remember lining up at the door. I had my Star Wars lunchbox. There was a girl who stood in front of me. She had very long hair. She had the best shampoo. My daughter always says, "Don't say that part, Dad. It's kind of creepy when you say that." But it's true because sounds and smells bring you back to places. And I stood in line, and she had long hair. She was a head taller than me, if you can believe that. The best shampoo. There were two boys in front of her, and there was a girl in front of those two boys. And one of those two boys said to the girl at the front of the line, "Hey, fatty." And I went home, and I sucked my stomach in for 2 weeks, and I pulled my belt loop as tight as I could. And for 2 weeks, I went to school in my corduroys with my belt pulled as tight as I could, worried that I would be that girl. And at that point in time, there were no programs in place to address SEL. Right? We didn't teach kids that if they saw something to say something, right? You just kind of had to figure it out. But SEL, as far as I know, wasn't what it is today. That's actually my son. He modeled for that picture when he was younger. That's not me. We don't have any of the old pictures. But I'll tell you this. If someone had come in and seen that happen and intervened in the moment, I can tell you that the girl at the front of the line, and I still remember her name to this day, probably wouldn't have had the hardships that she did. And when I look back as an adult at what that student had to endure, I'm sure there was more to the story than what that student endured simply from those two boys. There was a lot more going on. Teachers are the difference makers. Bus drivers are the difference makers. Cafeteria workers are the difference makers. Every single staff member has the opportunity to impact how our students feel when they step into school. Furthermore, I can tell you in my second year as superintendent, I had a list. It said the name of every single person in the district. I'm in a small district, single school, vocational school. We broke the building into 6 geographic areas, and I put the name of an administrator at the top of every column. 6 columns. It had the name of every staff member in that geographical area. Every 2 weeks, the name shifted. And it said, rapport before reports. Your only job was to see everyone on your list, at least everyone on your list, and say, how are you doing? Do you need anything? To learn their face, their facial expressions, which granted we know is a lot more difficult in COVID, and to simply ask how they're doing. And you might even learn their teaching style or co-teach with them when you go in. But it was not a formal observation. It was a chance to build rapport, not to file reports. To this day, we still do it, and to this day, every 2 weeks, I see all 109 members of our staff every 2 weeks with something as simple as a hello. Because if I don't, I'll only see the people close to my office. Think about who you're closest with in your district. There's a high likelihood that the person you're closest with might be your next door neighbor. And as an administrator, that's simply not acceptable for me. As a teacher, it might mean making a list of your entire classroom and on day one, figuring out who the most difficult student could be, and to call that person over and say, hey, I just wanted to say hello and get to know you and just let you know I'm really excited about the year ahead. And then to call that person's parents or parent or guardian, because we can never assume, at home and say, I just had the most wonderful conversation with your student today, and I wanted to let you know I'm really looking forward to spending the year with that student. And if you anticipate that that student may be the most difficult student that you're going to have, or if you have vertical conversations and you know of difficult students who struggle, and you start the year off with a complimentary phone call, the payoff could be unbelievable. Because I'll guarantee for a lot of those students that's never happened before. Or what if they got a postcard that said, words change worlds. These are just a few of the reasons you are appreciated. Because you know what students do? They put it in their desk. They hang it on their walls, whether we know it or not. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food, water, safety, security for kids, TikTok, right? Pizza, Xbox, whatever it might be. When our brains perceive a threat, we shut down. How many people have ever had a bad day or a bad morning and then they've tried to go to work and focus? Raise your hand. How many people thought it was easy? Bad day, went to work, tried to focus, thought it was easy. Now some hands may go up. I'll tell you why. A few years ago, I was walking through the hallway, and because I had taken the time to get to know teachers, and again, this teacher's given me permission to share this. I would never share a story without asking. I saw him this morning. I saw him in the hallway. I said, "John, are you okay?" He said, "Why'd you ask?" I said, "Your face is different today." He said, "Actually, do you have a minute?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can we step into the teacher's room?" Because there was no one in it. I said, "Of course." He said, "My wife's sister took her own life yesterday." I said, "I could see something was wrong just by the nature of your face." I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "My wife said she wanted some time. She just wanted to be by herself today and clear her head. And to be quite honest, when I come to school, it's an escape sometimes from the chaos. It's actually a place where I feel like my mind is clearest." I said, "Can you do me a favor?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Could you go home right now? Could you go home, tell your wife that you're going to be in the room next to her, and that even though she wants time alone, that if she needs you, that you're going to be in the room next to her, and that you're available for her. And do me another favor, John. Don't tell her I said to do it. Just go home." 3 days later, my phone rang. My assistant said, "Do you have a minute?" I said, "Sure." "Who is it?" She said, "It's Betsy." Betsy said, "I just want to thank you for sending John home." I said, "Betsy, I told John not to tell you that I sent him home." She said, "No, we had a real conversation about how valued he feels because you recognized that something was wrong." It's hard with these. We're going to have to pay a lot of attention to these, at least until October 1st. And there's a lot going on because not everybody wants to tell their story. But sometimes all we need to do is listen and watch and do the best we can, because no one can ask any more of us than to simply do the best that we can. And the best that we can is to put people before curriculum. Threats trump learning. We've got IEPs, ADHD, 504s, MCAS, PLCs. The most important acronym in education is "Are you okay?" In 2012 or 2011, I was serving in the capacity of assistant principal. It was the first day of school. I worked on a 200-acre campus with 27 outbuildings. Our cafeteria was across the street from our main building. Students had to walk through all of the elements, no matter what the weather was. They had to walk across the street to get to lunch every day. And our math department chair, one of the best math teachers I've ever met, was on her way to the cafeteria to lunch duty. She found a young man eating his lunch in the basement of our main building. And she said to him, "Aaron, are you okay?" To which he responded, "Of course I am." And she said, "Well, why are you eating your lunch in the basement?" He was a freshman. It was the first day of school. He said, "Because at my old school, when I would go to lunch, the kids would throw food on me, knock my hearing aids out of my ears, and make fun of my weight. And so I don't eat lunch in the cafeteria." He was 380 pounds, hearing impaired, and petrified to eat his lunch in the cafeteria. And she responded, "We need to go see the assistant principal." And he started to cry. She brought him to my office, and he sat down, and I said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "I know I'm in trouble." I said, why do you think you're in trouble?" He said, "I was eating my lunch in the basement. I skipped lunch." I said, "You didn't skip lunch. You ate lunch in a different place." And he said, "Well, I know I'm in trouble." I said, "Why would you be in trouble?" He said, "Because I know where I was supposed to be." And I said, "Well, tell me why you weren't there." And he explained the situation to me, and I said to him, "Would you be okay if I set you up with 3 upperclassmen to take you under their wing?" And I have to ask permission to do that, because he might not be okay with it, right? We can never assume. And he said, yeah, I'd be okay with that. So I called down 3 young men, Brendan, Evan, and Andrew. They were all seniors. And I said to them, would you be willing to take this young man under your wing? And I didn't call them down together, I called them down one at a time. Because if I called them down together, one might be interested and one might not be. And I don't want to force their answer. I have to respect where they're coming from. One at a time, they told me they'd do it. And so I said to them, that's wonderful. I want to introduce you to Aaron. Now, Brendan, Evan, and Andrew were not National Honor Society students. They were not the students that are picked for everything. One of them I had suspended for mooning traffic the year before, right? Like, this is who I asked to mentor a young man. Why? Because every student deserves to know their value. No matter who they are and no matter what their history is, they need to know their value. The value of these 3 young men is they were outgoing, they had a good heart, and they were loving. You can still moon traffic and be a loving person. Don't moon traffic on your way home. That would be a bad thing. Needless to say, these 3 young men took Aaron under their wing. And about a week later, my phone rang, and my assistant said, do you have a minute? I said, I do. Can you answer the phone? Well, who is it? It's Aaron's mom. I said, is everything okay? She said, I'm not sure. Picked up the phone. I said, this is Mr. Polanski. Aaron's mother said, is my son in school? And I paused, and I thought, I saw him today. Yeah, of course he is. Of course your son's in school. Why would you ask a question like that? Was he in school yesterday? Yeah, he was in school yesterday. Has he missed any school? No, he hasn't missed any school. Why would you ask a question like that? She said, I need to know what's going on. Are you sure he's been in school? I said, I'm 100% sure he's been in school. She said, he jumps out of bed to get on the bus every morning. For years in middle school, we had to drag him out of bed to get him on the bus. And now he jumps out of bed to come and get on the bus to go to school. And I need to know why he's so excited to go to school when he used to cry, kicking and screaming when we tried to get him on the bus. What's going on? I said, oh, it's funny you should ask. On the first day of school, we found him eating his lunch in the basement. She said, you didn't call me? I said, I didn't view it as a huge problem. We just set him up with 3 boys. They took him under their wing, and he seems to be doing great. He's made a lot of friends. She said, are you kidding me? I said, I'm not kidding you. She said, I need to come in. Can I come in and talk to those boys? I need to thank them. And I said, no, that would be weird. And it would be weird because this young man is a freshman in high school, and we're trying to help him spread his wings and become independent. And now for mom to fly in and rescue him might be awkward for him. And I said to her, what I will do is I'll call those 3 young men down, and I'll have a conversation with them. And I will thank them on your behalf, and then I will call you back. And I'll let you know how that went. Does that sound okay? She said, you'd do that? I said, of course I'll do that. She said, that'd be amazing. So I called Brendan out of my office. I said, hey, Brendan, I just wanted to talk to you real quick. Aaron's mother just called, and she said she wanted to thank you for what you've done for Aaron. It has been life-changing. He said, Mr. Polanski, I need to show you something. He opened up his wallet, and he pulled out a letter. And the letter was a letter from Aaron thanking Brendan for what he had done. And I got a little teary-eyed, and Brendan said to me, are you crying? And I said, yeah, I am crying. He said, you're the wrestling coach. I said, wrestling coaches cry. And he said, well, I've never seen a letter like this. I said, I haven't either. And if Aaron had said to me, hey, Mr. Polanski, I was thinking of writing Brendan a letter that's really mushy and appreciative. Do you think that's a good idea? I would have said, no. And I would have been wrong. And there's a big problem with that because I had a thought in my head 9 years ago that it wasn't okay for a young man who's a freshman in high school to show that level of vulnerability, and I was wrong. And so we grow as educators. So I thanked Brendan for sharing. I sent him back. I called Evan down. And I said to Evan, and before I could get a word out, he said, I know, I already saw Brendan in the hallway. I said, well, let me finish. He said, no, let me finish. My letter's different. I said, what? He said, my letter's different. I had no idea that Aaron was thinking about killing himself at the beginning of the school year, and that what we've done has changed his life. And again, I teared up. I thought, I can't believe I'm tearing up 2 times in a row. He said, I don't have the letter with me, but it's different. Well, how did he know it was different? How did the kids, one of them, I won't tell you which one, how did the kids who mooned traffic know that the sentimental letters were different? Because they shared them with each other. Because that's how powerful the written word was. And then I called Andrew down, and Andrew said to me, you know, Mr. Polanski, I already know what's going on. We all see each other in the hallway, but I do need you to know something. I framed my letter because in my house, guys don't do that type of stuff. Andrew's the kind of kid who found $80 under a stairwell, turned it into the main office, and said, I just found money under a stairwell. That's who Andrew was. We made an announcement on the intercom that said, we found money under a stairwell. If you know how much it is, come to the main office. Kid came to the main office and she said, it was $80. It was mine. I said, tell me what denominations it was in. She told me. I said, nope, those weren't the denominations. She said, well, it was folded in 4 and those were the denominations. I said, no, that wasn't it. She goes, then it wasn't mine. I said, I'm just kidding. That's exactly how it was folded and those were the denominations. But I wanted to test and see what the response would be. And she said, but it wasn't mine. And she said, who found this? And I said, you don't even know him. His name is Andrew. She said, well, I just want to thank him. That was the school culture that we had created. So those 3 boys took him under their wing, and then Aaron says to me, hey, Mr. Polanski, I think I want to come out for the wrestling team. I said, Aaron, you weigh 380 pounds. I just need you to know something. You can wrestle JV and you can wrestle the assistant coach, but you will not be able to wrestle varsity until you lose the weight because there's a maximum weight of 285. But we will put you on a regimen that will help you to get your weight down. And when you get your weight down, I got good news for you. There's 110 boys in our school. It's a very small school. 70% girls, 30% boys. I said, there's 110 boys in our school. You're the only heavyweight. As soon as you make weight, you're going to be on the varsity. He said, really? I said, yeah. So Aaron was on the team. A few weeks later, he slipped on a backpack. He was horsing around at the bus stop. He slipped on a backpack, and he actually broke his back. And he had to come to school in a brace, and he only missed 4 days of school. He had to come to school in a brace. No one made fun of him. Kids helped him carry his books. And at the end of the year, he said to me, hey, coach, I still want to come out for the wrestling team next year. And I said, Aaron, you're still going to have to get your weight down. And he said, well, I already started, and I'll be down to weight by next year. The following year, we started the school year. Aaron came out for the wrestling team, and Aaron lost every single match that he wrestled. He started the wrestling season at 292 pounds. By our first match, he weighed 285 pounds. He actually got down to weight, and he lost every single match that he wrestled. And midway through the season, I was at a training for my superintendent's licensure, and my assistant coach was running a practice on a Saturday morning, and my cell phone rang. And I picked up my cell phone, and my assistant coach, who's also, to this day, one of my best friends in the world, his daughter is my goddaughter, and he said to me, you need to come home. And I said, what do you mean? He said, there's been a horrible accident. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, we just got a call that on the way to practice, Robert, who happened to be the one that was wrestling with it, or horsing around with Aaron at the bus stop, Robert rolled over his Jeep, and he was killed. And we're in the wrestling room. There are parents coming right now, and you need to come back. And I came back, and as I walked into the wrestling room, a young man by the name of Cody greeted me at the door, and he said, Coach, you don't need to say anything. I lost my mother when I was 7 days old. I never knew her. But we've talked to the group. Some kids are writing. Some kids are sitting together quietly and talking, and some kids are on their own. And the parents are also a part of this. Cody says this, I've already spoken to everyone, but we're just glad you're here. And my heart sunk in my chest a little bit. And we had to figure out in that moment what to do with our wrestling season because it was pretty heavy. We had to figure out whether we continue or whether we just call it a day. And we decided to dedicate that wrestling season to Robert. We had shirts made with a Superman symbol. We tried to be as supportive as we could of the family. When we were in the wrestling room, Robert's parents came. They actually came and hung out with our team. 3 of our best athletes decided they couldn't compete. It was too much of a trigger. Every time they stepped in the room, they were reminded of Robert, who was a very close friend of theirs, and they couldn't compete. Others continued on, and then at the end of the season, when we were preparing for the state tournament or the sectional tournament, wrestling is not like basketball. In basketball, if you win more than 50% of your games, you qualify for the MIAA tournament. In wrestling, every student who competes at the varsity level has the opportunity to make the state tournament, even if they have a horrible record, which meant Aaron got to compete with a 0-18 record at the sectional tournament. And if he was lucky enough to place at the tournament, he would qualify for the states. And we had set goals before the tournament, and as we got ready for the sectional tournament, I said to the kids, think about your goals, let's get ready. And I said to Aaron, what are your thoughts? He said, I just want to win one match for Robert. That's what he said. And in my mind, I thought, well, that's not going to happen. But I never said that because I wanted to be in the NBA when I was a kid, and my dad said, you better have another thought. He discouraged me. I wish he had said, well, look at Spud Webb or Muggsy Bogues, but he didn't. He said, have a plan B. So I just said to Aaron, so how are you going to do that? And he said, well, I feel like I've been rushing. He said, I'm going to hold people's wrists, and I'm going to put all my weight on them, and I'm going to make them tired. And when I slow down the pace of the match, I may have more opportunities to be successful. And I thought, that's brilliant. For a kid who's not really wrestled that frequently, it's actually a really good game plan. So the tournament began, and before we actually got started, they have a seating meeting where all the coaches go in the back room, and they hear who their wrestlers are going to compete against in the first round. The best wrestlers are separated so that the number 1 wrestler doesn't wrestle the number 2 wrestler in the first round, right? Because it's like March Madness, you move through a bracket. So what happened was, Aaron was 0-18, his name was pulled out of a hat. Who did he draw? The number 1 wrestler. I walked out to the gym, the kids come running over, and they always say, who am I wrestling? Who am I wrestling? And I said, don't worry about it. Just think about what you have control over. That's the only thing I want you to focus on. And I want us all to think about that today. What do we have control over in our lives? What do we have control over as we step into this crazy season that's ahead of us? And those are the things we need to focus on, the things we have control over. The enthusiasm with which we greet students and each other. The ability to pay attention to eyes, right? The approach we take. When you think about how your dog greets you, that's how we should be greeting one another. Right? Hopefully your dog gets excited, they wag their tail and they jump all over you. You go out and get the mail, you come back in, and your dog greets you the same way, like they hadn't seen you. Right? What if everyone we greeted that way? And so I'll tell you, I came out, I said, just go with whatever your game plan was, guys. Don't worry about who you're wrestling. And Aaron went out and he wrestled the number 1 seed. He was pulling on his wrist, and he was pulling on his arms, and he was trying not to make himself susceptible to anything. He got taken down and pinned in 30 seconds, and that was that. And in his next match, I had my oldest daughter by my side. I think at the time she might have been 12. It's about 10 years ago. She's 22 now. She's a senior at Framingham State. And I was coaching in this direction, and Aaron was wrestling over here. And my assistant coach, who looks like a big version of me, probably 6 feet tall, shaved head, but a big guy, was coaching in that direction, and my daughter Hannah started to pull my pant leg. And she said, Dad, you need to turn around. And I said, Hannah, what's up? She said, Aaron's winning. I said, Hannah, that's not kind, it's not honest, it doesn't improve the situation. I didn't really say that. She pulled on my pant leg. She said, Dad, you need to turn around, Aaron's winning. And I said, Hannah, seriously, stop. She said, no, I'm serious, you need to turn around, Aaron's winning. And as I turned around, Aaron was pinning his opponent. Aaron pinned his opponent. And when he won the match, he looked around. You'd have thought he was in the middle of chaos, like he didn't know exactly what had happened. It was unbelievable to see the look on his face. And he put his hand out, and he helped the young man up. And then he knelt down immediately, and he pointed up at the ceiling. And then he stood up. And then he looked in the bleachers, and he looked at Robert's parents, and he pointed to them, and he kept pointing like this. And you can imagine, I was bawling my eyes out. And he ran and he picked me up in the air and he hugged me. Because I wasn't going to pick him up. My assistant coach comes running over and he goes, "If you win your next match, you're going to the state tournament." So I pulled my assistant coach aside and I said, "Hey, listen, this kid has a record of 1 in 19. Can we let him enjoy the moment?" And he said, "I have a question for you. Should we lower the bar just because he's 1 in 19? Or would we say that to every other kid in the same position?" "Sorry, you're wrong and I'm right." That's what he said to me. Now, he was also a teacher and I was the assistant principal. And that was awesome. And that's why we're like this, because he's real. And when you have real relationships with real people, real things happen. And we grow. And in Aaron's next match, he started warming up. And he used to warm up like this. And he started warming up like this. Smacking his head, and I'm going, what is going on? And you know when you see something click in somebody because they just learned? You know when that happens? That's what happened. Something clicked, and Aaron believed in himself. And as he got ready to go out on the mat to wrestle his next match, the Canton High School wrestling coach came running over, and he said, "Your kid doesn't have to wrestle." My kid was wrestling the Norwell kid. The Norwell kid beat him. They shook hands. The Norwell kid was declared the winner, and then he punched my kid in the face. So the Norwell kid was just kicked out of the tournament, but since he had already been declared the winner, there's an empty bracket, and your kid goes to the state tournament. What? Like, I felt like I was in a Disney movie. So I said to Aaron, "You don't need to warm up, but you are going to the state tournament." And he said, "Coach, I have a question for you." And I said, before you ask your question, I need you to put your headgear on because you still need to shake the ref's hand and get your hand raised. And he went out, put his headgear on, shook the ref's hand, came back, and said to me, "My question for you is, do you believe in all this stuff? Because I don't think that this would happen if Robert weren't watching." Now, I'm not here to talk about faith, and I'm not here to talk about deeper meanings. I'm just here to tell you that sometimes in our moments, we end up in places and we say, wow, I couldn't have written that story. I never expected to be in a position, or for Aaron to be in the position he was in. And I'm going to tell you that when I accepted the Assistant Principal of the Year award, they asked me to come up and accept the award and say a few things. And I said to Aaron, "Would it be okay if I just talk about your success?" And he said yes. And I said, "Would you join me? Would you sit in that breakfast, and would you be there as one of my guests with your mom?" And he said, "Yeah, of course." And when I was done, I said, "Aaron, would you please stand up?" And it was the MSAA summer conference, and he stood up. And there was a room full of every principal and assistant principal and whomever else in the state, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. And he got a standing O for what felt like 10 minutes, but probably was only 30 seconds, maybe more. And Larry Murphy, who now works at the MSAA, came over and said, "Young man, I have a question for you. Would you give the keynote address at my school opening?" The kid who ate his lunch in the basement. And he looked at me. And he said, "What should I say?" And I said, "Ask him if he'll give you lunch." And he said, "Will you give me lunch?" And Larry said, "Of course I will." I said, "Ask him if your coach can go." He said, can my coach go? And Larry said, "Of course." And then the Holyoke Catholic principal came over and said, "Hey, young man, I was just wondering, would you be willing to tell your story to my staff for our opening day?" And he looked at me like, what the hell is happening? And I said, "Well," and he goes, "Well, would you buy us lunch?" And I winked, right? The learning curve was there. I'm like, "Yeah, you got it, brother." And they said, "Yeah, of course." And he said, "My coach too?" And she said, "Yeah, of course." And we drove to 3 different schools in the fall, and we did school openings. And on the way home, Aaron said to me, "Hey, Coach, this is fun, but it's not really my thing." But I love when you tell some of the story. It's really fun. You should do it. And that's why I'm here. For almost 10 years, I've been in 43 states telling Aaron's story. Our life takes us to places we could never expect. Every day you wake up and you meet with your students. And whether you know it or not, you're changing their lives. And it could be something small that you said. It could be something you disagreed with them on. It could be a stand that you took. Or it could be something as simple as a hello when they get on the bus. Very few people get to do what we do. You change lives. What's under that sheet? Any guesses? What's under that sheet? Think about what your classrooms feel. Think about what your classrooms feel like when the kids just sit and look at you. Right? What's under that? Take a guess. Who said E.T.? Tell us your name.
Stephanie King.
Say it louder.
Stephanie King.
Stephanie, thank you. E.T. That's a good guess. That's a really good guess. I just put person under sheet. I Googled it. That picture came up. It's a person under a sheet. This is a sheet. Not every kid can throw on a suit jacket or an Abercrombie & Fitch shirt or a pair of Nike shoes. That's not every kid's reality, right? This is a sheet. This I wore because I wanted you to take me seriously today, and I thought it was a good first step. And I put on an orange shirt instead of a blue shirt. I said to Paul, can I change in the parking lot? Because it was hot as shit. I had sweat marks in my armpits, and I was like, Paul, I just need to, I had my own school opening this morning, and I just had to put on my Douglas colors, my blue and my orange, right? My kids say to me, hey Dad, can we go to Hollister? And I say, no, we can go to the Salvation. I have 6 kids. We can go thrift shopping, and you can get an Abercrombie & Fitch shirt because it's been washed, right? The letters are gone. That was a joke. Anyone who missed it, right? But we're going to go to the thrift shop because my clothing does not define me. And our kids need to know that. Treat people like the conductor of the butterfly circus and not the opening sideshow. How many people have been lucky enough to know and love a grandparent? Put your hands up really high. Know and love a grandparent. And if you're in the other room in the cafeteria, if you've known and loved a grandparent, put your hands up high and keep them there. Right? Put them up high. Known and loved. We can't assume. You may know them, but you may not have loved them. Know that some people have trauma in their life. Don't ever assume. Put them up high. Second part of the question is, when you look at that grandparent, how many people think to themselves, first thought in your mind, wow, they are so hot. No hot grandparents? You laugh. What do you think kids think about when they go to school? Oh my God, I have a zit. My daughter doesn't want to go to school because she has acne. I pray that I'll break out just so I can say to her, hey, I always have the same zit right here. I've had really good skin lately. It's been very hard to counsel her. So I go to my cheeks. Look at this, honey. I had to pop a pimple right here. She's like, Dad, you're an adult. You don't get it. And I'm like, no, I do. But kids have these crazy pressures. Young ladies have this amazing pressure on them to look like something on TikTok or social media. What if we judged people like we judge our grandparents? What if we thought about them and loved them because of who they are on the inside, not on the outside? What if we paused to look at the young person who walks into our classroom all broken up with clothes that look like they haven't been washed and got to know them on a deeper level and get a feeling for who they really are? And what if we could build them up and make them believe in themselves? And we can. We need to treat people like the conductor of the butterfly circus and not the opening sideshow. And I keep that up there because that is the most important thing that I'm going to tell you today. Treat people like the conductor of the butterfly circus and not the opening sideshow. Are there any questions? That is the most important thing I will tell you today. Treat people like the conductor of the butterfly circus and not the opening sideshow. Questions? None?
Does everyone else know what a butterfly circus is? Maybe neither.
So, tell us your name again?
I'm Josh, at the high school.
Josh, what is your role?
I'm the principal.
Josh, can you come up? Josh, have you ever been a part of this presentation before?
Well, I told the story at the beginning.
But first of all I could picture was like cornbread straws coming out of your mouth. That was an awesome story. Have you ever heard this presentation before?
No, I haven't.
All right. He was not a plant? He was not a plant. So your question is, ask the question.
So, I miss a lot of things, but I didn't know if maybe everybody else knew what a butterfly circus is.
If you don't know what the butterfly circus is, raise your hand. Okay. Please take these on behalf of everybody here. I really appreciate you asking the question.
I do really like socks. Like
Oh!
these socks have Mr. Spock on them and they have ears.
Oh my God. We're gonna stick around. We're gonna, not now, but later, we're gonna take a picture. Awesome. So, I wanna talk about something. This is what happens in your classrooms every single day. You say to kids, this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you. It's on the test tomorrow. Are there any questions? Especially at the high school level, maybe not at the early stages. But at the high school level, where the kids are taking notes, this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you. And then the kids don't want to raise their hand and ask the same question that every single person in the crowd is thinking. And the Butterfly Circus is a 20-minute short film on YouTube. This is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. And so I'm going to use a microphone. I want to make sure that the folks in the other room can hear it. The Butterfly Circus is a 20-minute short film on YouTube. At 3 minutes and 57 seconds of the Butterfly Circus, I used to hit pause as an assistant principal when I was sitting with two students who didn't get along. And then I'd turn to them and say, I want you to think about which character you are. And typically, the aggressor would always start to cry. It didn't matter who they were. It could be the biggest, toughest kid in school, or the meanest girl you've ever met. And typically they would get a tear in their eye. And then I'd say to them, there's 16 minutes left in the film. Do you want to go back to class or would you like to watch it together? And they always chose to watch the last 16 minutes together. And when we were done, I would always say to them, so what did you think? And they'd hug. Almost every single time. When we spoke at Holyoke Catholic, we shared the Butterfly Circus title because for years prior, we had already been showing this at our school to every freshman who ever stepped foot in our building, and every parent who ever assisted or came with that freshman to our freshman academy. On August 25th, we showed it to every parent of every freshman in my current school, and for over 10 years, I've been showing the Butterfly Circus to every student who enters my school district and every parent. And when parents come in and we have an issue, I remind them about the Butterfly Circus. If you watch it without crying, check your pulse. I'm being serious. At 12 minutes, there's a pretty moving line that the conductor offers to the main character. But throughout it, if you were to watch it 1,000 times, you'd get a different message every time you watch it. When I speak about it, people often tweet about it. And I had the producers of the movie say to me, what do you do with our movie when you present? Because several times a year, your name is affiliated with tweets about our movie. We'd love to sit and talk with you. So my daughter and I took a flight to California, and she got to sit with the producers of the Butterfly Circus, and we got to talk about their project and how we incorporate it in an educational setting. It's 20 minutes, it's free, it's on YouTube. What are you going to do when you leave? Watch it. That's flipping the classroom. That's how we flip the classroom. We shouldn't say, go home and read pages 25 through 35, and tomorrow we'll talk about it, because there's no curiosity. And if I didn't make you curious, I did a crappy job. Someone once said to me, do you think lecturing is a good form of teaching? And I said, not if you suck at it. But if you're a really good lecturer, it's a wonderful way to teach. And if you're really good at creating curiosity, then flipping the classroom is a wonderful tool to use with your students. So The Butterfly Circus is an awesome short film. It's 20 minutes, it's on YouTube. I hope you love it. If you do, send me a message on Twitter. I'm at Aaron Polanski. I'd love to hear more about it. And then cite the movie. We'll give them credit, right? The next piece is just a short film, since I can't show you The Butterfly Circus. Some of you may have seen this already, but if you haven't, I hope you enjoy it.
I had a lot of memories when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen, focus, and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and I would just start tapping, and the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Kid, when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." So I did. I went back to class and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person who believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me, and I will never forget it. So I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and the classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "No, I need you to know something about trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." Of a single moment in time, when somebody believed in me, and he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And from that moment, I learned there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
There's a lot of drummers waiting to be found. Not just in your hallways, but right here in the auditorium and right over there in the cafeteria. Every day is a new opportunity. If you woke up this morning and you had something in the back of your head that you haven't done yet, give yourself a chance and just get after it. Fear of failure is the most traumatic form of obstacle that we all face. And it's okay to be imperfect. And it's okay to make mistakes. But it's not okay to wish years from now that we hadn't done something that we've always wanted to do at some point in our life. And if today you did 1 push-up and tomorrow you did 2, in a year you'd be doing 365. And trust me, I know. It's real. It's called acute adaptation. Nobody jumps to the 12th stair. Nobody. Just climb one step at a time. On July 5th, I looked in the mirror and I said, man, look at where I've gone. It was not okay. I bought a journal called the 5-Minute Journal. Use your ESSER funds. Buy a 5-minute journal for everybody in the district. It's awesome. And study what you write in your journal. It's a 2-minute exercise. And if you don't get it through here, go online and get the 5-minute journal. And I started to study. And every night it said, what could I have done to make today better? That's the question they ask every night. And I kept writing. I could have exercised. I could have exercised. I could have exercised. And for 3 weeks I kept writing. I could have exercised. Well, why the hell didn't I? One step at a time. Well, from July 5th until today, I've missed 4 days of exercise. But we have an obligation to decide in our head what we want. And my question for you is, what do you want? Personally and for your students. What do you want? What makes you excited every single morning when you wake up? And why can't it be yours? The answer is it can. We have limited control over the outside and total control over the inside. I'm always going to be 5'4". I might even be shorter as time goes on. I'm probably never going to be in the NBA, right? I've got bad skin on occasion, more frequently than not, though I've cut gluten and dairy, so I'm doing a lot better. True story. You want better skin? Cut gluten and dairy out of your diet, you'll have better skin. That's real. But my insides, I have total control over my insides. We need to know that as human beings, and our students need to know that. We have total control over our insides. May your insides always outshine your outside. These are ideas for transforming culture. Learn something new about someone every day. Write handwritten notes of appreciation. I learned about Rhonda. I learned she was a twin. She's a fraternal twin. I learned that her grandchildren are identical twins. Right? Then I learned that Carol's last name starts with an M is it an M? M-A? Yeah. Forget the whole thing, but you start to put your pieces together when you meet just a few people. And if today I walk away and I get to learn something about someone in the district, I feel like I've grown a little bit. Link your assignments to passions, but give students academic choice. So you could do this, this, or this as part of the assignment. Watch them light up because they have options. Model risk-taking, curiosity, and creativity. Students and administrators co-teach classes. Let your students co-teach with you. Administrators, when you walk into a class, don't walk into a class to observe. Ask the teacher if you can co-teach with them. We had an exercise that we do at staff meetings. All the names of administrators go in a bucket. All the names of teachers go in a bucket. Teachers get to pull an administrator's name. Administrator gets to pull a teacher's name. That's the class that I'm going to teach if my name gets pulled. And I get to plan with the teacher. And it builds a relationship, and we get to learn about teaching style. They teach me, I teach them. It's collaborative. It's fun. Then I have to report out to that teacher and tell them what I would have tweaked in my lesson. It's real. And it's fun. You know what they picked? Cosmetology. You know whose name they picked? Mine. I was like, give me the bucket. I just want to make sure it's not all my name. Right? And it was real. It was legit. They pulled my name for cosmetology. That was crazy. Make time to simply connect. Mix work and play. It doesn't need to be all work all the time. We have to enjoy things. We have to laugh. Take a deep breath. That's important. There needs to be a pace. This is a marathon, not a sprint. As administrators, we also have to recognize that. Are your rules in place to prevent the 1% or to guide the 99%? You know what the worst thing in the world was when I was teaching? Someone would send an email to the entire staff and it would be a reminder of what you're not supposed to do. And then all of the great teachers would be like, oh my God, do I do that? And then the one teacher who does it would be like, what email? If there's a concern, have one-to-one conversations. But don't burden the whole staff, because 99% of them are phenomenal. Don't burden the whole staff with one difficult conversation, right? There's no substitute for one-to-one. Take time to check in. That's true at every level. When you have a one-to-one conversation with a student, There's no replacement for that. We talked about learning facial expressions, and we talked about rapport before reports. Our principal came in a few years ago. He said to me, what I love to do is take the kids on a camping trip, just a group of kids. 2 days overnight in the wild, sleep in tents. I said, that'd be awesome. He said, really? I said, yeah, that'd be great. So he took some of our most difficult, or not all most difficult, but some of our most difficult students and some of our students who had relationship trouble on a camping trip. It was miraculous what happened. This is Bill Burkhead, worked at Monomoy. Teachers at Monomoy put a wall together. They put the picture of every student up, and they put a message about what they loved about every student on the wall. 2 weeks later, the students put a wall together with all the teachers' names and everything they loved about the teachers. Written word. Beth Hoff, currently a Missouri principal, finalist for National Principal of the Year, puts her bio outside her door so that kids can learn more about her and staff can learn more about her. And the whole staff does it in her school. So when they're coming into your classroom, they can actually, if it's the kids who are old enough to read, they can read about you. You get to know a little bit more about who you are as a person, what your passions are. If you're teaching at the high school or middle school level, Anchor is a great way to give your kids access to free podcasts. If you want to do something creative. I did some speaking in the Midwest. One of the schools painted their parking spaces. An elementary painted their ceiling, to let the kids paint ceiling tiles. And this was a bathroom where they put quotes on the bathroom doors, and there were quotes over the mirrors that said, "Good morning, gorgeous," in the girls' room. Some pretty cool ideas. We did Meditation Mondays using the Calm app. 10-minute meditation right before school started in the gym, open to anybody who wanted to come in, and you could simply be in the gym and meditate. It was amazing how many people started to show up and then how many people expressed interest in the Calm app. And this year with our ESSA 3 funds, we purchased the Calm app for every member of our staff. So they have access to Calm during and after school time. 10% Happier is another resource. I work in a homogeneous community. It's very white. Our kids don't have an opportunity to see a lot of people who don't look like them, so what did we have to do? We had to find a way to make that happen. We partnered with Madison Park High School, and we have an exchange. They're now a sister school where we send a group of students to Madison Park, and Madison Park sends a group of students to us. We do that multiple times throughout the year. It's such a simple idea. Kevin is a good friend of mine. He was the executive director. He's now in the Boston Public Schools central office. But we got a call from the NCLA, which is a national organization, PBS and GBH, and they wanted to do an interview about the exchange, and we said it's so simple. It's funny that they're making such a big deal out of it, but sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest difference, even if they're easy. And I think it's important for our kids to see people who don't look like them. I work in a vocational school. When I was in Virginia, I had the opportunity to see a school where they do a signing day, so we stole that idea. Now when our kids, like you see kids go to Division I and Division II and Division III schools and they do athletic signing days, we do signing days with employers now for our kids who are going into industry. Why? Because every student deserves to feel valued, not just the elite athletes. And we highlight our graduates. These are the portraits of graduates. So you have the opportunity to think about students who have graduated from the Douglas schools and then highlight them. When you want to talk about recruitment or retention, when you start to highlight the successes of your graduates, people start to pay attention. Why? Because they want success. So if you have graduates who are doing great things, put it on social media and tell a story about it. This guy used to work for Spotify. He just moved over to Google. He's doing okay. And we oftentimes hear, don't touch the kids. I'm going to give you some advice. If you're in a supply closet and it's dark and there's a kid in there, get out. If there's a kid walking down the hallway and it's a full hallway and it's not COVID, and that kid has a tear in their eye, and you walk over and you put your arm around them, the first thing you do is you say, "Are you okay?" And you don't put your arm around them unless you know they're okay with that. But you might say to them, "Are you okay? Do you need a hug?" And if they say no, you don't give them a hug, but they might say yes. And I'm going to tell you something. It's important to know where that line is. I say jokingly, if you're in a closet, don't hug a kid. I probably shouldn't joke about that. But the reality is that you were hired because someone believed in you to love kids and do the right thing. Our job is to self-assess as educators and continue to do the right thing and do what's best for our students. You wouldn't be here if someone didn't believe in your ability to do that. And I truly believe that every educator wakes up and wants to be great. The question is, how do we support one another to accomplish that? Sorry. Thank you. So my final thought for you is, hang a picture of one of your heroes with the words "Ask Me" under it in your classroom or your workspace to open the dialogue and the conversation with the students and the people with whom you work. Because one day, somebody's going to hang your picture up and tell your story because you were kind, you were honest, and you improved their situation. You change lives. And I said it earlier, very few people have the opportunity to do what we do. And people put a tremendous amount of trust in us to develop their sons, daughters, grandchildren, foster children, whomever it is we might be looking after. And there is no greater gift than for those students to turn around and thank us for the work that we've done, or for us to see them succeed or overcome the obstacles that are in their way. I want to thank you all for everything that you do. I want to wish you well in the year ahead, and I'm accessible if you ever have questions or need anything whatsoever, even if it's as simple as, "Hey, this is a predicament I've been faced with, what would you do?" I love answering those types of questions. I can't tell you how many times I'll get someone who shoots me an email and says, "Hey, what are your thoughts about this?" I do have a couple of books for the two elementary libraries, and we have a banner that says, "Is it kind, is it honest, will it improve the situation for all 4 schools." Have a wonderful, wonderful school year. Stay safe, and thank you so much for your time.
Awesome, huh? What you guys do is truly unbelievable work. It really, truly is. And it goes beyond teaching the curriculum. It's making those connections with your kids. So thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. And again, another great round of applause for Mr. Polanski. It is 2:30 now. I want you to take the next half hour, not to go back and do work, but to mingle with each other, talk to each other, come see Aaron, write a thank you note, go for a walk, go for a ride, do something for yourself before we kick off the school year with our kids tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you for what you do, and have a great school year, everyone.
I love it.